Hey everybody, and welcome to my review of Disney's latest live-action retelling of their animated classics, Beauty and the Beast. Today I'm joined by my assistant director/editor and also my girlfriend, Mallory Landon.
I have so many roles in this man's life that I don't know if I can fulfill it all. It's so much pressure. Ugh. Sorry. I love you.
See, I thought that she was going to help me with my review, but I guess not.
I want to help!
Well then...
Okay, fine, I'll help. Where do I start? Okay, so the original animated feature was so groundbreaking that it was bleh. The original animated feature for Beauty and the Beast was so groundbreaking that it was actually nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards that same year.
This was the first animated feature to be nominated for Best Picture, and it is considered by millions to be the greatest of the Disney animated classic films.
Classic.
Why did I stutter on films? Anyway, but the question is for this new live-action retelling, how does it hold up against the original, and...
is it simply a cash grab?
Let's find out in this review. Now, before we actually start, I will go ahead and warn you, even though this is a non-spoiler review, we will have a spoiler-heavy talk at the end of the video, so we will let you know once we're about to actually start doing the the spoiler talk, and we'll give you enough time to shut off the video and go out and watch the movie first before you come back and actually watch us talk about the differences and changes. And now with that, let's get on to the review.
You have been warned. So this film does actually
The film does not tarnish the legacy of the original, and for both of us, we actually agree that it illuminates the legacy a bit.
Yeah, the plot is relatively and fundamentally unchanged, and the additions to it are actually pretty acceptable, and for both of us, it actually enhanced particular points from its predecessor.
It does. Sadly, certain individual scenes do not make the cut into this film, such as one of my favorite moments where after the Be Our Guest song, Cogsworth and Lumiere escort Belle through the castle, and Cogsworth does that really stupid joke, "If it's not Baroque, don't fix it." But what is transferred is a true feeling of enchantment and an even truer sense of romance. The cast is top-notch, all the way down to the most obscure cast member.
Starting off with Emma Watson as, of course, the lovely Belle. The way she portrayed Belle was absolutely luminous, and she had a beautiful voice to match.
Were we having the exact same thought?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have these moments a lot where we're just wanting to talk about the same thing, and we'll most likely have the same words, but we don't know who to say it.
I know, right?
No, I'll go ahead and say it. Well, we've both heard from many critics and passersby, even my own mother, who say that her voice is not powerful enough for the role, and frankly, I don't understand that consensus, because I felt like her voice captured the very essence of Belle.
And Belle is very calm, collected, gentle, kind, and she can be assertive only when it's absolutely necessary. And in terms of powerful, I would probably go as far to say only in one way, and that's probably just vocal range, which is perfectly understandable because I don't think Watson has had many singing lessons before the filming of this, which is perfectly understandable, so we can actually overlook that.
We had actually talked earlier about, because we're both choir kids from high school, and I think you actually were in choir a little bit longer than me.
Yeah, I was in it for all 4 years.
Oh, weren't you in choir a little bit before, like in middle school?
1 year only, but I didn't get it in middle school.
That's still one more year than me. Either way, we know a little bit, and to me, it felt like she just didn't have projection on her side. She still had range, but like I said,
actual projection was the only problem, in our opinion, was just, if she was a little bit louder, then it actually would have made the songs a little bit better that she was singing, but not even by much.
Not by much, maybe a smidge. It's a little nitpick, but we're not holding it against the film.
Exactly, and we can actually see why critics would pan her for that, but we are not of that consensus. We thought she was perfect. Alright, so now that Emma Watson's done, let's get on to Dan Stevens.
I love Dan Stevens. I know him from Downton Abbey as Michael Crawley. and I look out for him anytime he's in something. He's the first face we see in the film, and we immediately hate him.
However, though, as the film progresses, we actually begin to see him more as a person, and honestly, he actually has a gradual change of heart as the movie goes on. And it doesn't feel as quick as the original animated Beast was. It
Feels more drawn out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the use of CGI for his character was good, though just as a very tiny nitpick, I wish that they had spent a little bit more time refining the CGI, because it looked the least realistic of all the things in the movie that were completely CGI rendered.
It's not a complete flaw that we have with the movie. It's not something that it would bother you most of the time.
And honestly, I think I have it more than she does.
Yeah, CGI is a little hard for me to make out in terms of perfection, because I'm not really focusing too much on the detail. I'm just focusing on the fact that they were actually able to make something that detailed and that big.
This is the girl who didn't realize that Tarkin in Rogue One was fake.
Shut up! I forgot, okay?
Well,
I actually
although
believed it.
honestly, in her defense, I don't think that she knew that Peter Cushing died in like the 90s.
Oh my god, shush, I didn't know that. God.
See, that's what I was saying. I was trying to help you.
But
You guys don't think I was trying to ambush her or anything, right?
even though the CGI can be a little bit bothersome at times to people who are more likely to notice it, the production design, when you actually watch this movie and you see how beautiful it looks, you can kind of see why certain things weren't perfected over other things.
Yeah, but we will get into the production design a little bit later.
Yeah.
Kevin
Costner. Next up, we have Kevin Kline, who portrays the role of Belle's father, Maurice.
I loved his performance and rendition in this film. He's a more fleshed out character, unlike his animated predecessor, which was basically town idiot inventor who's overprotective of his daughter. But in this film, he's a former painter turned clockmaker with a very painful past.
And actually, his painful past actually will add more to his character, as he was saying, because the past actually ties more to the relationship he actually has with his daughter, and it actually makes it a lot more refreshing, if anything.
It really did. And I even liked, he has a small song in the front, which she was actually impressed with. She didn't know that he could sing, but I did, because, what? Because on Netflix a couple of years ago, I had seen him play in the movie version of The Pirates of Penance, which I believe is an opera. A opera?
A opera.
An opera. Now, the main antagonist, Gaston, is played by Luke Evans. You want to talk about him first?
Okay, so when people think of Gaston, they think that he is the town brute, he is some kind of ladies' man, and he's just the main attraction of the town. Personally, we've never really liked Gaston. Me more
I
strong.
disliked him. She hates him.
I hate
She
the
absolutely
animated
hates
version
him.
of Gaston.
And to me, he seemed dumber than he should have been. I never understood why he held himself in such a high regard compared to everyone else. He had no qualities about him that I could even relate to, not even in the slightest. Yeah. And I always hated how, what word can I use?
I don't know.
You know what? Overly eccentric he was.
Yeah. He had a couple of witty lines in the original one, but it still doesn't redeem the fact that he wasn't really that great of an antagonist to begin with.
Yeah.
If anything, he felt very cliche. This one, not eccentric over the top. Luke Evans is actually, for one thing, he's a lot more suave than the original Gaston.
He was.
I have to say, like, when all the girls are doting over Gaston, like those three girls that you see, they're just like, oh my God, Gaston. I didn't see why he was that charming, if anything, in the original one. In this one, I can clearly see why. He is a suave dude in this town. I can see why he is a talk of the town.
Yeah,
I can see.
He delivers his performance with such power and grit that he became Gaston, a Gaston that we can love. And the character even comes with his own backstory in the film that's mostly implied than actually said.
They don't really elaborate more on it. It's more just implied in a couple of sentences, but really, that's all we needed.
It was refreshing to me.
Because the way he actually delivers it, you don't need a backstory to explain it. Like, you can actually believe that that's how he would have actually come out to be.
There were even points where we were kind of theorizing in certain parts. No, I'm not going to say anything because it's spoilers.
Spoiler territory.
So we'll just go on to the next main character in this cast.
Oh, one more thing about Luke Evans that we really did not mention. Outstanding voice, by the way.
Why did I forget that?
He has an outstanding voice. And, God, what was it? It's talking about the actual song Gaston. Like, where
I don't know how you want to say it without spoiling it.
Where the way he sings, where he has that note.
Let's not talk about that. That could spoil some things.
We'll talk about it when we get to music.
We will, just a little bit. But I want to add one more thing. I'm actually not surprised that I'm not sure if I already said this. I feel like I may have. It may just be on another part that we edited out, but I'll try it again. I had actually done a slight bit of research before we actually went to see this movie, and apparently Luke Evans has Broadway experience. He performed for 8 years on London's West End in musicals like Rent, Sweeney Todd, and I don't remember what else. Well, anyway, let's...
You can clearly tell that this man has been on Broadway with the kind of voice that he has.
Yes.
You'd expect it. Anyway,
He's fantastic.
let's move on.
Let's move on. So the very last main character that we're going to talk about is LeFou, who is Gaston's sidekick. He's played by Josh Gad, who we all know from Frozen as Olaf, the snowman who loves warm hugs. And I personally know him from Book of Mormon, and he played... What was his name? Oh, yeah.
Elder Cunningham.
That's sad that she can remember that before I can.
He sings Book of Mormon all the time, so how can I not?
I believe... Anyway, for LeFou, I've always loved the character, but Gad's rendition, just like with Evans's rendition of Gaston, it's light years ahead of the animated versions, in my opinion.
These characters were more fleshed out. They actually got more personality and character development as the movie went on, and
I felt like...
And most of the time throughout the movie, I was rooting for them to actually come back on the screen because they were such a funny duo.
Yeah, and I think that the character development, there was a lot more for LeFou, mainly because I feel like there was still somewhat of character development for Gaston in the original one.
But he's intentionally not really supposed to have much character development, in all honesty. He kind of
True.
remains the same throughout.
True, good point, but
LeFou's character is more explored throughout.
Thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to say. Yeah. First off, we already know the controversy. He's considered by Disney the very first openly gay character in one of their films, and I didn't see a problem with it. Throughout the film, there's no gay scenes. If anything, there's parts where it's hinted, and it's maybe for
implied.
A total... Yeah. It's hinted, implied, whatever.
And the most that you're actually gonna see is probably for like 2 seconds.
3-4 seconds total in the entire movie.
It cuts away like instantaneously, but...
It really does. It just...
There's nothing controversial in this film if you are if you are more opposed to having gay characters in a movie. Don't worry, there's nothing really like that. It's more just joked about, if anything.
I mean... I would say that Disney actually dropping the news early was a very bold move.
Yeah, and it was actually very wise how they executed it throughout the movie. Like, they weren't trying to make a statement because of how the times are. They were just basically doing their own thing with it. I guess the writers did assume LeFou was that kind of character.
Well, I did
We
too.
actually did think...
I've always thought he was gay.
In the original one, that he was.
I mean, come on.
The way he came across.
He's overly eccentric. He loves Gaston. He's always following him around. Gay.
Well, yeah, I guess, but...
Or at least not necessarily gay, maybe bi, but either way, he was in love with Gaston.
But the fact that Disney actually announced this before their movie came out, he did say it was bold, but it was wise on their part to actually do it, because it flushed out the real viewers and the more conservative viewers in this case, the ones who are more opposed to that kind of thing. But it was such a great move on their part simply because the real fans will actually go and watch the movie regardless of that. They're gonna go watch a movie about a girl who falls in love eventually with a buffalo, as opposed to a guy who is implied that he is gay. Seriously.
I have to tell him this story. Okay, so we're going to the premiere, and it was a stupid moment. I just love how it just keeps looping through my head. So we're at a was it a stop sign? No, we're at a stoplight, and she's talking about it, and she's making like barking noises, woof, woof, and I'm asking her, what is she doing? And she's like, because the Beast is a dog. And I look at her and I'm like, he's based on a buffalo.
I make mistakes, okay? That he looked
Don't
like
cry. Don't cry.
He looked like a behemoth dog growing up to me, okay? I'm sorry that I didn't know that he was based on a buffalo, okay?
Oh my god.
I know now. That's all that matters.
Anyway,
Judge me anyway. People prejudge the film when they assume LeFou's sexuality in this case.
Okay.
But Belle goes to fall in love with a buffalo!
Okay. No, come back. Oh, she'll be right back. Now, let's move on to the next section. The musical numbers and score for this new version is just as spectacular as it was in the 90s, with the original composer, Alan Menken, returning to compose the original songs and score, and even made some new songs. And I loved each song. I had no complaints. I do wish that Howard Ashman, the original lyricist, was still alive, because I don't know if many people know this, but they were the reason behind a lot of Disney's most successful musicals during that time period, during the original Disney Renaissance. And Beauty and the Beast was Howard Ashman's last film. He was actually very sick. He didn't even get to live long enough to see it premiere. And I wish he was still around. Sure, Alan Menken does really good composing lyrics on his own, but I will say it's still not the same as Howard Ashman's. Any comments on the music?
I have no complaints about any of the music. I actually thought each song was performed beautifully, even the newer songs, which apparently people are very hit or miss for the songs. That are, how many more songs were added? Like 3 or 4?
Let me see. Hold on.
Don't.
I'm not gonna include the reprises, because there are a couple of reprises for some songs.
Reprisals.
3 or 4.
1, 2, 3. I think it was 3 songs that were added, right?
Hang on 1 second. So those were the only ones I could think of. Okay, so 3, not including reprises.
It may be 3 or 4. Don't quote us on that.
I can't think of any new ones.
But each one was necessary to the film. The original ones were performed beautifully, and the newer ones, I don't feel like they were absolutely necessary, but it didn't take away from the enjoyability of the film. They were actually very nice, because you actually got to hear each character sing, and every single person had just a beautiful voice.
There was one nitpick, but this is just me personally, and I can't control it. I loved the Broadway version of Beauty and the Beast, and I was hoping that at least 1 or 2 of the songs that were made specific for that one would be in the film. But when they announced they weren't gonna be, I was a little sad, because, I mean, the Beast has a couple of solos in that in the Broadway version, but there is one out of the new songs, so I have no reason to complain.
I don't feel like the Beast needed a bunch of solo songs, in all honesty. I feel like
in the Broadway version, he has like 1 and then 2 reprises.
He's more of a strong, silent type of character, so I actually did like that they didn't go the route of actually putting the Broadway ones where he's actually singing more. I actually like how more quiet he was as a character, in my opinion. It actually made him a lot more likable. So.
Yeah, and then when he actually did start to sing, it did make sense at the placement of the song.
And he does sing 1 song, but that's it.
Yeah, 1 solo song.
Yeah. And it actually was great. I feel like if they added any more, it actually probably would have ruined it a little for me.
Same. And then I do have to comment on one thing. In certain songs, they actually changed... I thought that they had simply changed lyrics, But really what they did, they actually added some original lines that Howard Ashman did make for the songs that weren't in the original cut. Like, I know the Beauty and the Beast song, any of the versions, there were a few lines that were different. They were all Ashman lyrics. I actually just found that out a couple of days ago, and it made me really happy. It makes me want to go see the movie again and just notice the differences. I think that's it for me on music, so on to the next one. Okay, so mainly all I have to say is that the production design was beautiful. I don't really have anything else on that. I mean, most everything was CGI, but it was the difference between that and live action was seamless. And the only place that I can think that was actually a set was maybe, oh yeah, the entire town. I think that took up like it took up about 100 acres, I think, of production design somewhere in like England.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you have anything on production?
The production design, he covered all the main points, in all honesty. How we were complaining earlier a little bit about the CGI, mainly on his part on the Beast. That mostly, I feel like most of the budget went towards the actual settings and the design of the actual movie, which you're going to get gorgeous cinematography in this movie. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. Every single frame could be a poster on someone's wall, or it could be framed in your house as wall art.
Well, I mean,
it would be beautiful to
that's
have.
one thing, like, in another video that I've done, I've commented on the use of visual effects in Jungle Book. I think without the technology that they had to create for Jungle Book, I don't think that the background CGI would have been as seamless, because, I mean, that's a movie where the only thing that's real is the human, the lone human character.
Agreed.
I think that's all I have on that.
Also, the costumes.
Yes, that's actually what I was about to get onto.
The costumes.
The costumes are beautiful, especially Belle's iconic ballroom dress. Oh my god.
That was beautiful. I loved the design of that. I actually like how a lot more, I don't want to sound, but I actually liked how the top was a lot more modest, in my opinion, and it actually highlighted the detail a little bit more.
It's because she didn't want to wear a corset.
Exactly. I actually really liked that they did that. I mean, like, it would cover most of it. Like, the original one is gorgeous as well, but this one just is gorgeous in its own way, too. Like, it actually suited the way that Belle looked, in this case more Emma Watson. It actually suited her face more, and I actually love what they did with her hair, too.
I loved what they did with their hair, and then
it was very simple.
She had I don't know if they had it on this ear, but on this ear they had one of those
it was one of those.
What are those
it was
things?
one of those it was in the shape of like a gold vine enveloping her ear. Those are called cuff earrings.
I've never heard of those.
You've never heard of a cuff earring?
No.
Have you ever seen like those elf ear things?
What do you mean elf ear things?
Have you ever seen like one of those things at Hot Topic where there was like a purple bejeweled elf ear? I showed it to you one time.
Oh, I remember. That's okay. Now
It's a version of that. It's called a cuff earring, and it actually I liked it. I actually thought it added a lot more personality to the way that she looked. It was gorgeous. That's all I can say. That's the only word I know for the production and the costumes.
Yes. And then speaking of a little bit more CGI, the actual character designs on the why am I blanking? Oh, the character designs on the castle servants are fantastic.
I feel like that's where most of the budget also went to, was creating the intricate details of those characters, especially Cogsworth. I am a huge fan of Clockwork. It was immaculate. I loved the little intricate details that they had. I like how you would hear him ticking whenever they'd zoom in on him, and then his clock gears would be moving, and certain parts would highlight. Cogsworth was beautifully made, and so was Lumiere, honestly.
Oh god.
The only little nitpick I had was that you didn't see much of his face, so you couldn't see a lot of animated facial expressions as the original one.
Oh, you're talking about Lumiere specifically?
Yeah.
You didn't necessarily need it.
It didn't take it away, but it's just, I would have liked to see just a bit more. So, to recap, this film is a lot bleh. So to recap, this film is definitely a more than faithful adaptation to the animated classic, and
We absolutely loved it.
loved it.
I'll go ahead and say this. We were actually kind of dreading saying this in a way, but we actually have a radical view of this film that probably most people won't agree on. I know most of the critics that I like watching and reading on a daily basis don't agree with this. I actually hate saying this. I actually prefer it over the original cartoon. And so does she.
I wholeheartedly agree. I liked the Beauty and the Beast movie. I liked the original animated one, but I didn't love it as much as this one because there was more to it.
I actually love the original one more than she does. It's still in my top 5 of Disney animated films of all time. Maybe 4? Maybe even 3. I don't even know.
He puts it on a pretty high pedestal.
Yeah, I don't rank my films very much. The only film that I really have up there is Ben-Hur. That's my favorite movie of all time. The original one, not the shitty one from last year, which I will never do a review on. I will never rewatch the new Ben-Hur. Anyway,
that's a whole other time though.
Pretty much every issue that I had with the film, from either storytelling or what have you, any issue in this film that I had with the original one was actually fixed. I was really happy with that.
Things were more explained, or like a couple of parts were cut out that really didn't need to be there, and the relationships were a lot more expanded upon. Like, you actually got to see why characters actually acted the way they did. There was more character development. This film is definitely more character driven than story driven. I actually feel like the original one is more story driven. This one is actually given character. Everyone's given a character. Everyone's given a voice. Everyone's given a song to sing. And that is what makes this film so much better than the original.
The music and musical numbers are either on par or far exceed the original versions. The new songs are all dazzling, and even some of the, or not even some, pretty much all of the characters are better in almost every way. This film deserves to be watched and enjoyed.
I think it's definitely the best live-action retelling of all the live-action Disney ones that have been retold already.
Welcome back. So now we are getting into the spoiler-heavy discussion, and we actually have a list of what we're gonna do in our heads that we actually talked about, and we'll each take turns talking about it, and then if the other has some extra comment that they want to say on it, then we'll give our thoughts, and then we'll move on to the next one. So for the first one, this was actually one of the first things that I noticed. The bell in the animated version had a strange arrangement with the bookstore owner to get free books, when he should have been charging her because it's a bookstore. It's not a library, it's a business. So I didn't understand that. The live action version fixes it by having Belle borrow books from... excuse me. She borrows books from the local priest, which also fixes the mistake of why there would be a bookstore in a town filled with people who despise books and reading, which is enforced when the priest calls Belle the only bookworm in town.
That is very strange, actually. I didn't notice that until you said it, so...
That was one thing that always bothered me. I didn't realize it until I was a little bit older. But...
Actually, that does bother me a little bit about the animated one. Now I'm actually starting to like it a little bit less because it did that. It was contradicting itself because a lot of the people in the town are very opposed to the idea of a woman being educated and being smart and even teaching children, which she does do in this film, actually. She's actually... Emma Watson as Belle, she's actually teaching a child how to read in a scene, and someone actually comes along and spites her for it because she shouldn't be doing something like that because of how odd she is. And I actually like how they incorporated the fact that the priest actually will have a few books that she will want to read. He's not necessarily like...
He's not like everybody else.
He's really not, but he's still kind of under the impression of everybody else that she's a little peculiar, if anything. But that's
I didn't really feel that. It was more like he was on her side, but he wasn't going to challenge the status quo because everybody else was against him.
Yeah, that was basically what it was. So in the animated version of Beauty and the Beast, there is a huge implied plot hole. So Lumiere confirms that everyone is in the castle has been cursed for 10 years. And it is said that the Beast has until his 21st birthday to break the curse he's been put under. And the curse was that if he didn't find true love by the time he turned 21, he would be a beast forever. So the Beast was cursed, no, the prince was cursed when he was like 10 or 11, something like that. But
with math.
Though the murals and the portraits that have been shown in the movie of his human form that the Beast actually slashed, he looks a lot older in those.
At least...
Which does not make any logical sense.
No.
Unless it was like one of those painters who like wanted to paint how someone would look in the next 5 years or something like that.
I don't think they did that,
But
though.
I highly doubt they did it in that time period.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the live action version actually fixes this by having the spell happen when the prince was older. Yeah, when he's actually an adult. And instead of saying 10 years, Lumiere says too long. I don't know why I made it sound so dramatic.
10 years we've been rusting, but now it's too long we've been rusting.
Betsy's been dead for 10 years.
I love how I said with math. I have no idea why I said that. No, just logical math. 21 minus 10 is about 11 years. Yeah, so
Did you really have to think about that? So 21 minus 10 is...
No,
11.
because the logic was that he was about 10 or 11, which makes sense, but then if I use the math, then I can't say 10 or 11.
10 or 11?
I really don't have any comments on this one, because, I mean...
It was explained, it was a fix
Yeah.
that was in the movie. So that's good.
I can't think of, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it.
So next we have Chip and Mrs. Potts.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that.
Yeah.
Okay, so... The age of Chip and Mrs. Potts has always been questioned in the original animated version, or at least by those people who went back and watched it multiple times and really analyzed it. In the original one, Chip sounded younger than 10 years old, and when the curse is broken, he even looks younger than 10. So that kind of implies that he was born a teacup, but I highly doubt, if you really think about it, that Mrs. Potts could have most likely given birth while being enchanted.
I can't imagine that. That's just so weird.
Also, when she becomes human again, she looks substantially older. She doesn't look old. She looks way too old to be his mother, let alone to have actually given birth to him.
As a teapot.
Well, either way, she looks like she's at least 70,
I know, but
and
my
if
mind
he's 10,
is,
there's no way.
I know, but I actually didn't realize this until you said it just now, but I can't even imagine the thought of Chip being born a teacup.
Let's not think about it. It's
Please,
Disney. It's a Disney movie. They're not going to say anything about it.
That's weird.
Anyway, like I said, she didn't look young enough even to birth a child.
Yeah.
The live-action version fixes this by having Mrs. Potts and Chip actually run into the ballroom as the prince is getting cursed, and Mrs. Potts looks substantially younger than her animated counterpart. Like, how old is Emma Thompson, do you know?
I don't know.
I think
she's in her 20s. Something like that.
Emma Thompson?
Like
No.
late 20s?
No. Okay, we're gonna cut for a second and then we'll be back. Okay, so we did just look. She's actually 57. Although in the movie, she actually does not look like it. She actually looked really good. Anyway, she actually just thought of something, and I'll go ahead and give that to her.
It had just occurred to me that, Chip in the live action one, in the very beginning of the film, he looks exactly as he is, and then by the very end, when everyone's transformed into their human forms, he looks exactly the same. When I think Lumiere said they'd been cursed for too long, but I don't really think that there was a sense of time in this, because the weather never changes in the castle when we see that Belle's there with the Beast and everyone, and she's there for a couple of months. And the weather does not change at all. Like, it is just never changed at all. It's always snowy. It's always wintry, just like when the witch actually came and cursed everybody. I have a feeling that,
time technically stood still?
and that's why none of them really age. That's why when everyone transforms back, they all look exactly the same. Same costume, same look, and none of them have aged a day.
I actually like
And
that.
the Beast actually being an adult, when he actually does change back into an adult, he looks exactly the same.
Well, I think naturally he would, because, I mean, you know...
Well, no, I would mean, like, I would expect them to age just a bit, but there was no hint that anybody aged in this film. Like,
Yeah.
in the actual castle. Nobody did. And it would explain why Belle's appearance didn't really change all that much.
I still don't think that... I don't think she would have necessarily changed in appearance, but you may have a point. It's not really told
like
how long she's
details, there. A few little details. But
yeah,
time essentially was halted, I think, in this
That
film.
would kind of hurt my thing from the animated version about, like, you know, how, what is it? I'm sorry, guys, I just blanked on it. The thing about Chip, oh yeah, how he looks, younger than 10 years old. But then again, it wasn't implied in that movie that time stood still, but if you look really closely, I feel like it was implied in this movie. So I can keep it, never mind, sorry about that.
Brain fart.
Brain fart. So in the live-action version, compared to the animated version, they actually explain a little bit of how the curse works. In the animated version, it's odd that the villagers had no idea that there was a castle nearby. This is explained in the opening narration when the narrator says that, for the live-action opening narration, not the animated, I had a feeling that maybe it would get confused. But it's explained in that opening narration that the curse caused the townsfolk to forget about the castle, and all who lived and worked there ever existed.
That would actually explain the time halt theory, too.
It kind of would, too, yeah.
It actually would add on, because everyone who forgot that they existed, everything is forgotten about in that general area, and then when everyone transforms back and time ceases to be halted and everyone remembers who they were, that's why they don't look at each other as though they haven't seen each other in years. It was as though they just saw each other like a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh my god, I can't believe I forgot you, like, and that kind of thing happened. Like, that actually boosts the time halt theory. That they look exactly the same as they did when everyone remembers who they were again.
Speaking a little more on that, I do love how when the mob actually went into the castle, they're all just like, it's strange, it's almost like I've been here before. Or whenever they were actually fighting, like Mrs. Potts recognized who we didn't know at the time was her husband. And she just... what's his name?
If everyone thinks
Monsieur Jean? She called him that.
Well, actually, if everyone thinks it's familiar, then wait, doesn't that kind of decrease the time halt theory, too?
Wait, what do you mean?
Like, if everybody goes in there and they're just like, oh, this all seems familiar somehow? Wouldn't the time halt theory necessarily be knocked down?
I really don't see how, because, they just remember being there. It's more of, it's like whenever somebody has amnesia, and then they go about and they actually start seeing things that they've been near, and it's almost like it's in the back of their head. There's a recollection, and then sometimes that'll trigger memories, but this kind couldn't because it was a curse. You can't stop recollections from happening.
Makes sense.
Or at least, my understanding is that you can't.
Makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I think that's all I have on that.
Okay, so in the animated version of Beauty and the Beast, so when Maurice is going to a convention and he has to leave the town for it, he decides to take a dark and ominous path through the woods, and it's kind of unexplained how and why he came across the castle, and because it felt more of like a, well, because I felt like it kind of moment.
Because I felt like it. What was that?
I could take a different route.
Anyway.
The live-action version of Beauty and the Beast actually fixes this by having a lightning bolt strike a tree, which blocks Maurice's normal path. So it forces him to go down a much darker path, considering that that's the only option because everything else is too dark to go through, or shrubbery is covering it. Mm-hmm. And then you have the tree blocking his normal path, so it's natural that he'd go the other way.
Yeah, because like you said in there, it felt more like a because I can. Because in the animated version, the literal difference was that one was kind of dark and foreboding, but not as much. It was just dark, mainly. And then the next one, the one that he actually decided to go down looked a lot worse. You know, like, what are those fields called? Like in Maleficent and Sleeping Beauty, those vines that have spikes on them? You know what I'm talking about, right? I think it had...
Thorns?
What?
Thorns?
Thank you. Like a thorn brush, like that kind of stuff. It was either that or like dead and decaying trees.
It would make sense. It's still a little weird that nobody's ever really gone down that dark and foreboding path except for Maurice. It's still a little strange, but I don't question it up to that point.
Hang on, let me think. I'm trying to remember. There's one movie that I'm trying to remember, but it actually explains it.
Actually, no, it would make sense. Maybe the reason why was because the wolves that were there. Maybe the wolves would scare most people off, or they would already have gotten people and maybe killed them before they got any further.
Yeah, but you would think they'd send somebody like, say, Gaston into the forest to kill them.
Well, unless it wasn't necessarily a threat, you just don't take that path. If anything.
Or go to that part of the woods, maybe.
Yeah. You take the normal path.
Or maybe there was a point to the curse where it actually made everybody not want to go over there or even think about it. But
it was closed off to the general public, like nobody knew that it existed, sort of thing.
Yeah, it was part of the curse. But there was something that allowed Maurice to go that way. Maybe
the fact that he got past the wolves. Maybe that he went further in.
Oh, no. The wolves happened later. But I'm saying something either with the curse or just fate decided that in order to actually break the curse, he needed to go to the castle so that he could set in forth the motion of events that were to happen.
Maybe it was the witch to give him... the witch was trying to give the beast a chance, so maybe...
I was thinking... I was thinking witch, but I don't know, like, a simple witch, enchantress, even if she is powerful, wouldn't maybe necessarily have omnipotent powers?
I can't take the word enchantress seriously after watching Suicide Squad anymore. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. Like, okay.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you for that.
Calm down, enchantress.
Yeah. For the next one, in the animated version, it's unexplained how Philippe, Maurice's horse, knows where the castle is when he abandoned Maurice long before Maurice even showed up at the castle. He just abandoned him on a road after he was being chased by wolves. So it would make no sense that Philippe could actually lead Belle to the castle. But the live-action version fixes this by having Maurice actually take Maurice all the way to the castle, and then them getting separated there.
In a way, it still doesn't make complete realistic sense that the horse would be able to do that.
Who cares? It's a Disney movie. It's still
you can't make that excuse every single time. So.
I don't do horses' noses work like maybe dogs? Maybe. I said maybe a lot. Like, you know, he knows where to go, kind of, but Belle needs to... Never mind. That's a stupid thing. Horses probably can't do stuff like dogs in that sense.
Horses are actually very smart, and I don't think you give them enough credit.
Well,
I think that horses...
I'm not saying smart. I don't know if their noses can do that.
I think that horses can give a general lead on where to go, but I still feel like they need a little bit more direction, so actually having Belle there most likely was able to balance it out a little bit.
Maybe. It's still like the original one does a cut from her being in the town and going off to actually getting to the castle. There's like a huge gap that's cut out. But like I said, my only problem was not that, you know, he actually knew where the castle was, which that still doesn't make sense, I guess, in many ways. It was mainly the fact that...
I think it was mainly the fact that the tree that was blocking off the path, it actually made Maurice go to... Or no, it made Philippe go to the left instead.
It was the right.
Or the... Thank you, the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what set it off. I think Belle leaded Philippe up to that point, and then Philippe just kind of knew where to go at that point because he knew which direction it was. It would make more sense. It was more balanced out.
Yeah.
Still just a tad bit of a nitpick, but that's just because it's a Disney film, so.
Yeah, I'm not going to question it. Like I said...
I do believe that horses can be that smart, though.
It's not... Like I said, it's not about smart. I don't know if their noses work like that.
I don't think it's noses. I think it's just a general sense of direction.
I guess.
Anyway.
No, I was saying, like, if maybe she got him to sniff something, like a dog. Okay, so, this is the last one we could actually think of, and this was one that I actually thought of way before her, and so she wanted me to take this one, which I kind of wish she would talk about it, but I guess...
He has a lot more passion for this, trust me. You're gonna be here for a while.
And I noticed this for a while. So, in the animated version, it's not really said, it's more implied that the Beast is illiterate, and it's even confirmed in the Broadway musical that he is illiterate. And Beaches Belle Belle actually teaches him how to read, which, you know, sparks their love for each other. But that always felt like pity to me. I always hated that.
I agreed with that, actually.
Yeah. In this version, the live-action version, Beast speaks about having an expensive education, and he's actually read most of the books in the library, which he even jokes about, you know, have you read all of these? No. Some of them are in Greek. Which was actually, I loved the joke, but it was so stupid. It was like a good level of stupid. And, what was the word? Oh yeah, like I said, expensive education, and he's already read all the books in the library, pretty much all of them. And them having a shared love for books and reading helped to create their bond, and thus created the spark for their feelings for each other. And
not really to mention, but when the Beast is cursed in the original one, he was either 10 or 11, and he's been living in that castle for 10 years, so he's not really had much exposure to the outside world while being illiterate. So technically, in a way, he still has a mind of a child in a way. So when Belle comes...
Just with a lot of anger.
Yeah. Has a bad temper.
Claws.
Temper tantrums. Anyway, when Belle comes into the picture and she starts to bond more with the Beast and even teaches him how to read, like, I actually take back my comment. I don't really feel like, I don't necessarily agree with that. It was more of a pity kind of love. I think it was more of a...
I'm not saying it felt like pity to me.
I just didn't like the fact that she was essentially falling in love with a child in this case. Like, he was an adult, but he had the mind of a child still, because he wasn't given that much exposure to the outside world, so...
Yeah.
I guess he could have gotten it from the servants, but in the live-action one, I actually like how it felt more like an actual relationship forming. In the original one, there was a relationship forming, yes, but in this one, we actually get to see more than just a montage of her teaching him how to read, and them just kind of looking at each other and smiling at each other and having dinner and stuff, and then they're dancing. In this one, they're actually sharing common interests as people and are actually discussing books that they love, and even challenging each other on the books that they love and don't really like. Like, Belle loves
Romeo and Juliet.
Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and the Beast actually... He does not like it because of how...
I don't think he does. I don't think he hates it. He just thinks that he hates the message. Like, you know, I don't remember what exactly he said, but it was something like, love isn't worth it, or
something about like the romance, the way that they executed it was very dramatic, that kind of thing. He did not like that, and it actually was. Because
it was funny the way that scene went out.
It was funny because he wasn't making fun of her for liking it. He was just more joking about the fact of what Romeo and Juliet was essentially saying and how it was being told. But she still thought it was funny that he had those kinds of views, that he wasn't as, stubborn and big-headed as she originally thought, that she prejudged him. And so the fact that you actually got to see...
he did give her reason, though.
Yeah, obviously. But... I love how their relationship formed. They build off each other. They actually gave each other character, and you didn't get to see that in the original one. Because, like I said, I still have the idea that the original one was more story-driven than character-driven, and I'm more for characters. That's probably why I didn't like the original Beauty and the Beast that much. I still liked it to a point, but that's all I can say. In the live-action one, this one was more character-driven. You can actually see that was the highlight.
I didn't think about that, actually.
This was actually the highlight of the movie, was the fact that these characters actually all had development. Not just Belle and the Beast, but Gaston had not much development intentionally, but he did have a little development here and there, mostly revolving around Belle. Mm-hmm. And then LeFou obviously had a lot of character. Maurice had a lot of character. All the castle servants did. Everyone did. Everyone had a great performance to give, but the chemistry is what really made this movie just tie everything together into a nice little bow.
And back to that one complaint that I had about the cartoon, the way that they executed it in the live-action version, which... I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that, guys. But it felt way more compelling in this one, and one of my favorite parts, while they were kind of doing a slight montage of stuff every once in a while with them actually sharing their love, and there's one part where they're actually walking in the castle grounds, and she's reciting poetry to him while she's walking, and they're on a bridge, and he looks across a frozen lake, and says something like, "It's like I'm seeing it for the first time," and I loved it. It was beautiful. Just the way he said it, and the way that his face was, the facial expressions.
Agreed.
His face was.
His face was.